The revolutions that occurred in the United States, France, and Latin America resulted not only in dramatic changes in the governments, but also in the reshaping of Western views of politics and the nature of social orders. The revolutions inspired a feeling of solidarity among many people with others who shared their views, both within their own countries and in other parts of the world. And it also gave them hope for a truly democratic society that valued equality, freedom, and justice. Liberalism was based on the ideas of liberty and equality. Liberalists advocated representative government, equality before the law, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, and freedom from arbitrary arrest. They also promoted free enterprise and lack of governmental control of the economy, like laissez-faire. After 1815, advocates of liberalism were largely from the middle class, and their interests collided with those of the lower classes, who often wished to limit such things as the right to vote who owned property. I'm going to skip down to socialism, which first emerged in France, and one of the most influential early advocates of socialism was Count Henry de Saint-Simon. He welcomed industrialization but advocated governmental control of the economy with industrialists in charge. Socialists like Saint-Simon advocated for the poor, government control to ensure economic equality between the rich and poor, and the regulation or abolition of private property even. And then radicalism, like its name implies, proposed drastic changes to existing governments and mainly advocated the narrowing of the gap between the rich and the poor. There were several branches of radicalism, with some advocating the elimination of titles of nobility and the redistribution of property, but all believed in some means of achieving social equality among the existing elites and the rest of society. During the French Revolution, for example, the Jacobin radicals opposed all forms of counter-revolution and wished to limit the power of the king and institute a republic. The Marxists were also radicals. Now, feminism. Many women believed that the values of equality, liberty, and democracy that inspired the revolutions of the time should apply to them as well as men. And movements of feminism emerged in France, Britain, and the United States. In France, many women assumed that the revolution would grant them rights equal to those of men, like citizenship and suffrage. However, they were not granted to women following the French Revolution. So in 1791, French playwright Olympe de Gouges wrote the Declaration of Rights of Woman and the Citizen, which was modeled after the Declaration of Rights of Man issued by the National Assembly. Although the document contained many lofty sentiments, including freedom of the press, the delegates' use of the word man clearly left women out of the equation. And the Declaration of Rights of Women extended those ideas as applying to women as well. Now, Mary Wollstonecraft was an English writer, but she also wrote a rebuttal of the assumptions that women were not equal to men with the Vindication of Rights of Women, in which she argued that women deserved all of the rights that men had achieved in the French Revolution, including the right to equal education and participation in politics. She also argued that women were rational thinkers apart from their husbands and that equality should extend to women. A Vindication of the Rights of Women was translated into French and circulated throughout France, Britain, and the United States. By 1882, women in England had gained property rights in marriage, and women's groups began to fight for the right to vote and for rights for working-class women. Around the turn of the 20th century, the fight for women's rights created a new ideal, that of the new woman who broke with tradition and worked in a profession outside of the home. And then you had in the United States Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, who organized movements based on women's suffrage or the right to vote. At a convention in Seneca Falls, New York in 1848, a resolution was passed that justified women's rights to suffrage and to equal rights in the areas of education, professional occupations, and politics. They composed the Declaration of Sentiments, in which they set forth the rights of women. However, the women's movement in the United States would not receive popular support until the 20th century.